edition of the T20 World Cup because they lost to Uganda. But they've beaten Australia. They've gotten exactly the result that they wanted. Perhaps a win would have made them happier, but it doesn't matter. The celebrations are going to go on for a long, long time because for the first time, you will not see an Australian team qualify. It will be Zimbabwe who have qualified into the Super 8s. They've eliminated Australia. If it wasn't for the crucial win that they secured against them just a few days back, you would not have seen jumping and dancing in the aisles as you did today, even when there was not a single ball that was bowled today. Many congratulations to Zimbabwe. Australia are out of the T20 World Cup. Yes, they have a match in hand left, but it's immaterial now. The two teams that have already secured qualification for this very group are Sri Lanka and Zimbabwe.
Exactly that, and this is a unwanted first really for Australia. It's not first in the sense that they actually have been eliminated from the group stage once before.
2009.
Exactly, 2009. But ever since, the very least that they managed to do is make it to the knockouts. I think 10 was the year when they made it to the final, and then England beat them in that final. Thereafter, they've always been thereabouts. 21, they won the title. 24, they made it to the Super 8s. This time, they're like, nah, not even going that far. It's brutal, but you can't say it's not deserved considering they lost to Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe basically just 1 point was needed to ensure that that dreaded E comes in front of Australia. In fact, as things stand, Ireland have more points than Australia, which is saying something.
Yeah, but that's again also a matter of time. As we had said for this very news as well, only a matter of time before you get your biggest upset, biggest headline of the T20 World Cup. This also is a function of time because Australia left with one match, that's against Oman.
Yeah.
They are expected to be winning against Oman because that'll be a bigger upset if they lose against Oman, having already been eliminated from the tournament. But in all likelihood, you expect Australia to be winning the final match and getting to 4 points. But 4 points means that Australia will finish in Group B in third place, and there's nothing that can be done now. If it wasn't for that loss against Zimbabwe, things could have been different.
Yeah.
But once Australia failed to chase things down the other day, well, it was always going to be an uphill task for them. And you heard, when is it, Shane? I'm just trying to recall. We've been a part of the era that growing up, we were scared of Australia.
Exactly.
We had seen Australia win 3 back-to-back world titles, give a defeat to India in the 2003 World Cup final as well. So from that dominant side that had gone unbeaten for about 25, 27 odd matches that we saw in the past, that record I think still holds as far as Australia are concerned in ODIs. From those standards, those lofty standards of Australian cricket, to now talking about the fact that Australia have struggled to move past the group stage of a World Cup.
I mean, see, I think it's also fair to note one thing. I don't think T20s was ever a format that the Aussies international team warmed to that much. Whilst they were always good thereabouts, the fact is it took them till 2021 to win their first and only title. And even that, I would argue, came against a run of play a little bit. They had terrible form in bilateral cricket prior to that. Even in 2023, their form wasn't great. They pulled things together at the right time, and on paper, you knew they had a squad that was capable of challenging. Since then, though, I mean, in 2025, they were comfortably knocked out of the semis in the Champions Trophy. 2024, comfortably beaten by India in the Super 8s and shown the door. I don't know, I think a transition era is coming finally for Australia, because even when they previously had those transitions, they still had players who were good enough to ensure that the wins kept rolling. Now, though, you've not seen, Stark is already retired. Cummins was unfit, Hazelwood is unfit, and they are also in their 30s.
Yeah.
There is going to come a time when you're going to move on from them too. Whenever that happens, where's the next generation?
That's the question you're asking. Are Bartlett and some of the other guys, Richardson, between Jai Richardson, but where's he these days? There's so many of these questions you ask of the next gen Australian fast bowlers, and it's not just something that's ailed them in this tournament, but this is something that could potentially be ailing them going forward as well. Yes, you managed to somehow win the Ashes, and you won that convincingly with the likes of Bartlett, etc., or your second string fast bowlers.
Yeah, but your second string fast bowler was Scott Boland.
No, but the fact that you only had Pat Cummins for one match Hazelwood also didn't play all 5
games.
matches.
Stark played all games.
Stark perhaps played all matches. So if you're looking at going past, these guys and planning for the future, you already saw the Ashes. Yes, it was just down to an England side that were low-key delusional, that were low-key.
That was also let's say, dare I say, very, very, very prone to committing harakiri more often than not.
Yeah.
Very, very good
Again,
at
you weren't up against a very strong England
you
team.
weren't.
So that Ashes
weren't.
win is something everyone saw coming. 4-1, people had almost sort of written the obituary for England cricket and said this is going to be 5-zip, given how the Ashes had started. But that Ashes win was something that you had seen coming for Australia, and also that was a home Ashes series.
Yeah.
But if you thinking forward, Australian cricket, they really need to be pulling out some, you need to be pulling out a rabbit out of the hat at the moment, because you just don't feel that they have the right reserves at the moment to take Australian cricket forward.
Even you're talking Ashes, look, go back to 2023. They were one rain day away from losing that Ashes. One rained off day away from losing the Ashes. There were 2 things I believe that cost England the Ashes in 23.
Talking about Manchester.
Yes, one was the rain. The other was that bone-headed declaration. Those are the 2 things. I think if Stokes didn't declare, they would have probably won that test.
Yeah.
In that case, it would have been 3-1 in their favor instead of 3-2 against, or 2-2 against, or 2-2, because again, that draw was meaningless. It meant that Australia retained the Ashes. If they had lost to that team, I think questions would have been asked a lot sooner. In fact, what that win did, I think, was prolong their this thing for a little while, because if you look at the teams that they've come up against at home since, even India, they came across a beleaguered India. And India that were kind of trying to figure things out in Test cricket, which were also straddled with veterans who were underperforming at that point in time. Kohli wasn't in a good run of form, neither was Rohit. You were making changes. We didn't realize it at the time, but that was the start of the 8 batters era in Test cricket as well. So you were making changes. No surprise that they won that series. No surprise that they won the Ashes. Everything else, though, it looks like, how'd they win it? And that's because their bench strength has been lacking. And now I think you're going to see it tested more, because again, in T20s, they haven't always been, despite having fearsome players, they've never been that team. I'd argue West Indies have a better legacy in T20 cricket than them as 2-time champions.
We speak of dead wood. Oftentimes, it's a word that's used in football a little more than it's used in cricket. But if you're talking about dead wood in a team, and speaking specifically about Australia, I think there is some dead wood that needs to be cleared.
Yeah, absolutely.
You look forward to the summer transfer window to be getting rid of the dead wood. If Australia are looking at pressing the reset button, it happened with the Indian team as well a couple of years back, when after the 2022 debacle, you were looking at a reset button that had to be pressed, and you needed wholesale changes. You needed to change approach. You needed a little bit of tweaking in the personnel, but a massive change in terms of the psychology and the way cricket was being played.
Exactly.
With Australia, though, philosophy I don't think is that big an issue, because these are players who wear their heart on their sleeve. But
personnel is.
But personnel is an issue. With them, philosophy and mindset isn't the problem, but the players is a bit of a problem. You need to be questioning where you're going with the likes of a Zampa. I know Zampa does very well, but what has Zampa done for you in these spin-friendly conditions is something you will have to go back and reassess. Do you have somebody to look beyond a Zampa? And where is the next gen Australian pacers? That's the other question that they need to answer, because when you think of Australia, you first think of fast bowlers, not spinners.
Exactly. That's the thing. I don't really have that much of an issue with the batting, although there's been a few that have been woefully out of form. However, the bowling, as you say, it just lacks any bite. It lacks any teeth.
Yeah.
I look at that and I don't feel afraid, which is rare, because even after, I remember you're talking about the Australian teams that tormented us in our childhood. Even when the likes of McGrath, Gillespie, and they started moving forward, you still had the likes of a Mitch Johnson, then later a Mitch Stark, and Hazelwood Cummins, and the likes come through. Yeah, Lee was that bridge. Because Lee was younger than those guys. He played in that generation and then was a veteran bowler for the other generation.
Very briefly, Clark as well.
Yes, you had the likes of a Stuart Clark, you had a Clint Mackay,
Ryan Harris.
Yeah, you had good bowlers there. So it's not like you didn't have decent talent even back then. Peter Siddle,
yeah.
Very, very underrated in that sense. I always found him. So you had players Now, though, I look at it and I'm like, this. You look at the bowling now. Yesterday, when we were going through it, there's not anyone who I'd look at and be like, this is a guy who I'd be afraid of.
Yeah.
You know, at times we talk about sometimes reputations preceding you. A Pat Cummins might not be a perfect T20 bowler, but if I'm coming up against him, I'm still a little bit afraid.
Yeah.
Because I know the reputation this man possesses in the world of cricket.
Yeah.
Maybe not in T20 cricket, but the world of cricket in general. Same with the Hazelwood. Hazelwood is being praised now as Hazel God, but T20s weren't always his preferred format.
Yeah.
It was T20, it was Tests and ODIs.
And you know, the one time besides the BBL that we get to see, young Australian talent happens to be the IPL.
Yeah.
Then. But what really is happening with the likes of Spencer Johnson, Richardson, I already mentioned. Then there is Ben Dwarshuis as well.
Yeah.
Are these
The likes
guys
of a Bartlett as well.
Are these guys really setting the stage on fire? The answer to that is a big fat no.
No, that's the thing. Even Cam Green, there's been so much talk about Cam Green this, Cam Green that. I'd argue Bo Webster is probably someone who deserves to be playing ahead of him. He showed that during the Ashes as well.
Got the all-round ability.
He's got the all-round ability. Green is someone who's being backed on potential. I don't mind that. But the fact is that he's not lived up to that potential more often than not. And the thing is, I remember, this is just by the way.
Just take it forward. Huh?
Yeah, just by the way, this is an Australian team who, lest we forget, was at one point in time, they had so much talent that a Mike Hussey had to grind it out in domestic cricket for years and years and years before he got a chance. Just another example, Damien Martin, probably one of the most legendary Aussie players of that generation, spent 5 years away from the test team because he played one loose shot in a test match against the West Indies. One loose shot. He played one loose shot and he was canned for 5 years. He continued scoring runs in domestic cricket and it took him 5 years to get another chance in the team. That was how high the standards were set at that point in time. Right now, you see the team will back players consistently for no good reason. Someone like... as I said, Green was one example. Maxwell, I think, is another very egregious one. You're always backing him thinking, X Factor.
I touched upon the deadwood. I think when I'm talking about deadwood, I'm definitely looking at Glenn Maxwell. Because for far too long now, Glenn Maxwell's been hit or miss.
Yeah.
I know he comes in with the enigma. He comes in with the mercurial personality. He is a mercurial player. If you'd ever use one word to describe Glenn Maxwell's career, both franchise and international cricket, it'll be mercurial. You don't know which Glenn Maxwell you'll get on Monday. Come Sunday, it's a Glenn Maxwell that can score you a 40 ball 100. That is Glenn Maxwell for you. But if I'm looking forward, I think Australia need the kind of a look in that India needed in 2022.
Yeah.
This really calls for a shake-up. Mitch Marsh, again, there are fitness concerns with him. You've entrusted him as the captain for this tournament and a couple of series before that as well. But you really need to be taking a call in terms of how much you're getting in from him with his all-round ability that he promises, but the little that he does as a bowler at times. So you need to then figure out what exactly your core will be. Josh Inglis is somebody I like. He again has shown in the past that he has those nerves of steel needed. But again, much like so many of his peers, was just not able to make a statement when his team needed him the most.
Same with Tim David. Tim David coming into this tournament was one of their most feared batters.
Yeah.
He's looked ordinary. And that's the thing, that's the worry. They've lost form at crucial times and I don't think they've had the squad.
If I'm thinking forward with the 11, let's say that played yesterday, I'm keeping an Ellis because again he's somebody with conditions when they're sticky, and of course Australia will be travelling as well as any team will. So you need somebody like an Ellis because he is Australian, but he's also somebody who will come good when Australia are travelling away. Of course, there's always resistance when you're playing at home, but the fact that he's got a back of the arm slower one, he's got some variations, he's got the skidder as well. So Nathan Ellis is somebody I'm keeping up. Keeping a Cooper Connolly for the promise that he showed in the bilateral series against India. Stoinis, I'm not too sure. Glenn Maxwell for me should not be there.
Stoinis is another one who has been hit and miss for far too long and still continues to get backed because of reasons.
See, he's a maverick player. You maybe can just keep him, but if I'm just looking at a young core, and if I'm planning for 2028, then I'm keeping these two. I'm keeping perhaps an Inglis. I'm keeping a Travis Head. and maybe a Cam Green just because he's got age on his side. But otherwise, there is a lot that needs to be done, and Australia will now have to do a proper review of where things went wrong. You lost against Zimbabwe while chasing about 170 odd. You failed to defend 180 against Sri Lanka yesterday. So there's far too many questions that Australia need to answer at the moment. In fact, dig in to be able to find those answers, because it's not just on the surface at the moment everything that they're looking for.
Exactly that. Let's see what the family members have to say. You got Ashish Dhar who says, without a Cummins, Stark and Hazelwood, anyone can beat Oz. I used to think that wasn't true.
Yeah.
Then this tournament came around. And I look at how ordinary their team looks. And I'm like, yeah, you may have a point, Ashish.
Yeah.
You may very well have a point.
It's again a reminder, of course. They say batters win you matches, but bowlers win you tournaments. No bowlers, no tournament. No tournament progression at the moment for Australia.
Yeah, exactly that. Priyanshu says, this February we laugh. Next February BGT, I think Australia will laugh. That's the funny part.
You're hosting the BGT this time.
Doesn't matter. You have to win 5 tests against them.
Yeah.
How are you doing that?
Yeah.
Unless you go back to those gaddas. But that'll end up tripping you only.
You fell in your own gadda twice.
Exactly. New Zealand and South Africa.
And South Africa, you've fallen in your gaddas.
So how again do you then move forward? With that also it worries me.
No gaddas. But yeah, you may just be right, Priyanshu.
Because they'll have all of them available then. Cummins, Stark.
Yeah.
There'll be a Nathan Lyon.
Yeah.
There'll be a Hazelwood. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. Rahul, not Dravid, says now 3 chokers in the knockouts. Yeesh. South Africa, New Zealand and India fighting for trophy. India started winning now from 2024. So that tag may be slightly out and they'll win again. I agree. I think calling India chokers now... No, I think that's passé.
Yeah, now they've won the 2024 T20 World Cup. Few months later, they win you the Champions Trophy as
and
well.
then Asia Cup.
And the monkeys off the back. Let's be very honest.
Yeah.
This is something that many of us had said back then as well. You waited for 17 odd years for there to be a major ICC tournament win or a World Cup win to come about. That win took place, and yeah, the curse is over. The monkeys off the back, and you're looking good now.
Exactly that. You've got Ruben Loganathan says that to win, the team must perform excellently in 2 crucial stages, semis and finals, not how they play in earlier rounds. India found out the hard way in 2023, so the best team will win. I agree.
That's
Sushil Chavda says again the same point. After Stark, Hazelwood and Cumming, their bowlings is going to be an issue. That's the thing.
That's what
That
we
is
just
the
touched
thing.
upon as well. Yeah.
That's the thing. They just don't have that. Nationally, great year of cricket. Jharkhand and Haryana played their first Test match finals. J&K are on the verge of the Ranji finals. Uttarakhand first semis. Associate Nations played great in the World Cup. And Zimbabwe qualified. Congrats. Wow.
Thank you so much, Nashley, for putting it so beautifully.
Well,
over there.
very eloquently put. I agree. It's been the year of the underdogs.
Yeah.
Freaking Awesome says, our strategy was very wrong too. Yesterday, Renshaw wasn't playing. They went with only 3 proper bowlers plus 3 part-timers. 180 plus hasn't been chased at Pallekele before, but SL did it for the first time. That in itself tells you how bad it was.
With 2 overs to spare, 8 wickets in hand. That tells you a lot about how confident Sri Lanka and dominant they were in the chase.
Exactly. Abhesh Das says Australia is going through a transition with the retirement of Finch, Warner, Smith. In ODI, Stark eventually, Maxwell will also go. They'll struggle like they struggled after the golden generation.
Not too sure how much they miss Aaron Finch. Because he really was struggling.
He was an NPC, non-performing captain.
He was a walking wicket.
Any ball you bowled, he would get out. I remember 21.
Conspired to get out.
21 was bad, man. It was really bad. Scroll down. I've taken these ones. Rookie Techie said England will also be out if they don't play carefully in Super 8s.
Yeah, they've also
Carefully?
been very underwhelming.
Baz is the coach. Forget about it.
They have been extremely fragile, England, in this tournament.
Yeah.
Extremely fragile.
Absolutely.
They don't look like 2-time winners at all.
They don't. They actually don't. Deepak, we took that one.
Anshu Mishra has one comment.
Shane, sir, Australia deserved this playing mediocre green despite being worst across 3 formats. Connolly, who is averaging 4 in international cricket. Maxwell, Stoinis already past primes. And Sarat Chandra, by the way, is putting an update to yesterday. He's saying he was fact-checked later on when it comes to Nisanka. KL Rahul had scored 100 in the first innings of a T20I. He would have been the only batter to score hundreds in all innings across formats.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, KL, yes, he's gotten it across formats too.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Excuse me, can we take any more or are we done?
Okay, we'll take the last one. Let's see then. Keshav Kumar is now asking for our top 4. Of course, it's going to be a very different looking top 4 now.
I think India, South Africa. Can we go, Pawan, do me a favor, just open the Super 8's bracket.
Yeah, I think 7 of the 8 slots are done.
Yeah, 7 of the 8 slots are done now. Now Pakistan. It's really down to only Pakistan.
Yeah.
Go down,
Pakistan
scroll down. You'll find it there only. Yeah. See, so look, you've got. I think it'll be India and South Africa from G1, and I think from G2 it'll probably be England and New Zealand. Although I wouldn't put it past Sri Lanka, but I do think they might struggle against bigger teams. So I'd say England, New Zealand. So basically, it's like Sena minus Oz. And India. So Seni.
I'm extremely tempted to put a West Indies at the moment. There's something about them in this competition which is exciting me. I do feel that
if they were on the second one.
Yeah, I definitely would have named them, but just because there's an India and a South Africa in the same
that's
grouping,
what worries me.
That is what is just
I feel a bit for Zimbabwe though. They've qualified for the Super 8s and got thrown into the worst group. Absolute worst. They'll be lucky to get a win from there.
Like at the moment, you can count yourself to be competing against maybe Sri Lanka, England for sure, and yeah, if it's Pakistan, you're more than just competing. You're probably beating them.
2022.
So
the Mr. Bean derby.
So yeah. Zimbabwe would be again. They'd just be happy that they are at a platform where perhaps at the start they wouldn't have thought they would reach. But yeah, I don't see them really doing much in the Super 8s. But yeah, okay, so to go with my top 4, I'm going with South Africa and India from the group that India are in. From the other grouping, I'm going with Sri Lanka. I think home advantage really is coming good for them.
Yes.
And I am going with New Zealand.
Ooh, very interesting.
Now, these are not the top 4s that I had in mind at the start of the tournament, but such has been the last 10 days.
Exactly. So there's what we think is our top 4. We'll take your leave for now, but thank you guys so much for joining us on this special live video of ours. We'll be back with the dugout also in a little bit. So allow us to take your leave for now. But as always, like, share, subscribe.
Precisely 25 minutes.
We'll be back.
Return as we talk about something that we need to talk about, what we need to talk about. So yeah, we will come up with something for sure as always in the evening. So do return to this space and let's take the conversation forward. Plenty to talk about. For now, Shane and I will say goodbye to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye to you.
Bye-bye.